The death of Osama bin Laden was meant to be a mortal blow to his al-Qaeda terrorist network, yet despite killing other senior leaders and cutting off much of its funding, the Islamic insurgents continue to flourish. Al-Qaeda remains such a potent threat that the United States last week was forced to shut down embassies across the Middle East, threatened with attack. In Iraq, the militants are on the verge of sparking all-out civil war, and Al-Qaeda has infiltrated the Syrian opposition, trying to topple President Bashar al-Assad. Well, let's bring in terrorism analyst now, Samuel Makinda from Murdoch University. It's nice to have you on the program, Professor Makinda. Why is it that Al-Qaeda, or the idea of Al-Qaeda at least, remains so resilient?
Well, it remains resilient because we have provided the ground on which they can germinate more seeds. We have provided opportunities for them to train. We have provided opportunities for them to supply arms to their fighters. And we have given them an opportunity to gain experience in war fighting by allowing some of the countries that we don't trust to help the rebels in Syria.
So given that, how much of a threat does it remain, particularly to outside the Middle East region, to Western interests, to the United States?
I don't think there's a major threat to the United States or Western Europe or Australia. I think the problem is limited to the Middle East, where security forces have faced serious problems, where intelligence agencies have not been able to monitor effectively the activities of some of these Al-Qaeda supporters. But most important, there are developments in the Middle East that the West cannot control. The type of problems that we have had in Egypt in the last 1.5 months, the type of problems we have had in Syria in the last 2.5 years, those are the kind of problems that are providing the breeding ground for more Al-Qaeda supporters to emerge.
Was it the political vacuum that we found in Iraq after the toppling of Saddam Hussein, then the election of a Shia government, and now the ongoing violence there? Was that the breeding ground for Al-Qaeda to regroup and reassert itself throughout the region?
That was part of it. But I think Al-Qaeda has benefited from the efforts of Western governments to support mobs or to support the masses to rise up against governments. And when you support that kind of movement, you more or less suggest that security forces should not crack down on the rebels. And Al-Qaeda has taken advantage of the fact that Western governments are supporting masses that are actually rising up against dictatorial governments. But because they are rising up against those governments, they are paralyzing government efforts to establish security. And that opens opportunities for Al-Qaeda supporters to emerge and pretend that they are also fighting for the right cause.
How coordinated are these groups? We saw that the breakout from the prisons inside Iraq, hundreds of militants breaking out of those prisons. As you mentioned there's the infiltration of hardline Islamist groups amongst the Syrian opposition, and links back to Ayman al-Zawahiri, who's still the titular head of Al-Qaeda, operating somewhere out of Pakistan. So how coordinated is the Al-Qaeda radical Islam network?
I don't think that they are coordinated from a particular center, but there are various organizations that communicate with each other. For instance, the Al-Qaeda affiliated organizations in Iraq are joined forces with the Al-Qaeda affiliated organizations in Syria. And because the border between Syria and Iraq is porous, those people are able to move fighters from one country to the other without any hindrance. They are also able to move weapons from one country to the other without any hindrance. And to add to this, the government of Nouri al-Maliki in Iraq has been ineffective I would say the failure of the governance system in Iraq has also aided this, and I think the storming of the Abu Ghraib prison was an indication of the powerlessness of the government of Maliki in Iraq.
Professor Makinda, where does this leave the West, most notably, of course, the United States, in trying to be able to battle these types of groups? Is it a matter of creating a fortress around your own country so they can't infiltrate that? Is it a matter of being able to pick winners and losers in the various battles in the Middle East? Do you resort to propping up the hardline dictatorships against the mobs, as you mentioned before, or do you try to find opposition groups that you can support inside those countries? Where does the West sit?
We don't have a single answer to all these problems, Stan. We need those people in the West, or the decision makers in the West, need to reflect very seriously on the consequences of their own efforts, on their own activities in these countries. We need to look at the type of activities we're undertaking there, the type of groups we are supporting, and what the consequences of the support for these groups is likely to be. But we don't have a particular answer. All I can say is that if the whole world, if the West and the rest of the world are determined to sift carefully through what is going on in the Middle East and design good policies, enlightened policies that actually support the people there, I think they're likely to win. But if we think that we can go there with our military forces and impose a solution on a society that we hardly understand, I think the problem will continue. So we have the opportunity to sit down, reflect, and decide good policies. That's my answer to this problem.
Yes, and as has been pointed out many times, you simply can't kill your way to victory in this battle. Thank you so much again, Professor Makinda, for joining us.
My pleasure.